Are we live? I hope we're live because we're starting. So hello everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome to our third broadcast of our spring series of Google Hangouts with PASA alumni. I am your host, the Alumni Relations Chair, Arlen Mendiola. So each month, like always, I host a panel of PASA alumni through the use of Google Hangouts. Each time we'll be talking about a specific topic that was voted on by current PASA students. So today we'll be talking about how to prepare for the jobs after your first job post-PASA. As always, it is my hope that through the use of Google Hangouts, I am creating a platform that allows our PASA alumni to share their successes and knowledge with current PASA students, as well as other folks in the higher education community. So here's a rundown of what to expect in this Google Hangout. In about a few moments from now, I'll have our alumni introduce themselves. After intros, we'll have a conversation around the questions that PASA students submitted prior to this Google Hangout. After our discussion, we'll take questions from our live viewers on our Google Plus page. And then after that, we'll conclude with our final remarks. So we're fortunate to have two of our wonderful alumni here today. Unfortunately, our third one that was scheduled, Dan Hirsch, couldn't come because of other conflicts. Without further ado, I'll have our alumni introduce themselves. So name, year that you graduated from PASA, your current institution, your current office, your position, and what do you do?
So I guess I can start?
Uh-huh.
Okay, awesome. Hello everyone, my name is Lena Njoku. I am a PASA alum of 2012. I currently work in the undergraduate programs office under the Office of the Provost. I am a senior academic advisor, and what I do, I service the population of at-risk students at USC. Ultimately, my job is to increase the graduation rates by targeting those students that are least likely to graduate. That includes the 2.0 to 2.3. Keeping those students from moving into academic probation, which is under 1.99. So we try and keep them from falling into that area. I also target NAI students, which are the Neighborhood Academic Initiative, helping them through. Also target students that are have a foreign language hold, SCP students, and transfer students, and spring admit students. So those are all of my populations that I advise to make sure that they are getting the resources they need to matriculate through USC.
Great. And Daphney?
Hi everyone, my name is Daphney Bitanga. I'm PASA class of 2009. I work in Associated Students Incorporated, ASI, at California State University San Marcos here in North County, San Diego. I'm the Assistant Director of Programming, and I work primarily with the Campus Activities Board, also with the Board of Directors. And as this campus continues to grow, we're hitting our 25-year mark this year in 2015. We're really working on initiatives for night and weekend programming as this campus also transitions from the NAIA to the NC2A Division II, working on spirit and traditions, as well as other things that are changing on campus life. We're hitting the 13,000 mark, which is a mid-size but big for this campus, more residential population, and trying to work on what the Cougar experience really is for students attending school here.
Great. Thank you for your lovely introduction. So we'll transition into our discussion questions. So right now, a fair amount of our second years are immersed in the job hunt. For a good handful of folks, they're going for their first full-time position in higher ed. One of the things that I really resonated with in seminar this past semester was Tracy was having us starting to think, like, how can we start having this conversation around preparing for the job after the first job out. So how is this form of job hunting different from the one that many second-year PASA students are doing right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know I was supposed to start. Okay, so I think this type of job hunting is different because once you're coming out of graduate school, I think there's a little bit of I need something, that type of anxiety for a job at that point. So you're kind of you know, I think everyone is different. So some may be just open to kind of anything in student affairs. But what's going to be different after you already have a job, you have a little bit of a little bit of more, you can be more picky about the type of position that you're looking for. And sometimes after that first job, you know more of what you want and the type of students that you want to work with. And I know that definitely happened for me. I actually worked full-time during the PASA program, but even during that time, my interest in my student population became more refined, and I knew exactly kind of what population my next job would be working with. So that's the difference. You may not know, you may know generally what your interests are, but getting that actual experience, you may be more specific with your job hunt once you get to that actual first or second job out of the program.
And I'd have to agree with what Lena mentioned. She alluded to how your interests change. We're very lucky in PASA to have opportunities for graduate assistantships. It's encouraged. Sometimes you have two. Sometimes you transition, and within the 2 years, you've had up to 5 different opportunities, and you really develop what it is that you want to do. So again, I feel like I'm saying ditto to everything, but that's what it is. The first job is like, I need a job. I'm going to graduate. I need to take care of myself. I'm ready to move and go on. The second position is, okay, great. From my first job and from some of the continued education or presentations or so on and so forth, that I think I want to focus on this area. What institutions are going to provide for that? What can I maybe bring to this institution to change my current role and maybe see where you fit in? So I learned this actually during a graduate externship between my 2 years. It's 50% about what they want you to take in the job, and then 50% about what you want to get out of the job. And that's been very important to me for moving forward and through my career, and also with working with my students. It's not always everything that you need to execute in the job descriptions. You're consistently learning, and I think that's a true characteristic for a lot of people in PASA, is that you don't have an end result necessarily, so you do have the opportunities and the benefit of kind of figuring out the things that you're interested in and how to really make those things move in the job force. And then your second job will then help you into your third, fourth, so on and so forth.
Yep.
I know for me, like right now, it's so hard to see like the bigger picture of things, because it's like I'm so excited, like, okay, gonna go for my first like full-time higher ed position, but at the same time, it's like I know I need to think about like preparing for those next jobs out, and I don't know. I think for me, like it's nice that we're able to start having this conversation right now, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm getting more stressed out.
And don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. You don't even want to know how many applications and interviews I've gone to and what my actual return rate is on jobs offered. So coming from someone who's a little bit farther out, I've been in so many positions, and I wouldn't change the experience, because there are things that we've learned in PASA and I've been able to utilize, but I've learned a lot along the way and really encouraged me to look into it. Just because I did one thing this year and in this position, I don't think that my role will continue in the same exact way as I move from institution job to job. Keep at it.
Thanks. So when I think about this, like, and working in higher ed, like I always think of like this, this is my career path. Like this, like I'm able to do a lifetime of work, and so within that lifetime of work, like I know I'll be doing a lot of different things throughout. But my question is like, when do you know when it's time to actually look for a new position and move on up?
Yeah, I think that's a very individual type of question. I think there can be several kind of indicators that you may experience that will let you know that, maybe it's time for me to move. For my personal experience, too, that I've had in 2 different job settings was number one, my boss told me, you may be getting too big for this position. A second one was, so that was actually the last position, but my second job out of undergrad, I knew that I didn't want to work with, I was working here at USC, but I worked for Upward Bound, and that's working with high school students. And I knew, in that experience, I knew I wanted to work with underrepresented students, and I knew I wanted to work with college students, but the job at USC opened up, and I took it, and it just kind of verified, like, this is a population, but this is not the age range. So I got the job because I wanted to be here at USC, and I put in my time. And I actually love my students, and I still actually keep in contact with a lot of them. I've gone to college graduations of my students from Upward Bound, but I put in my 2 years, and I knew it was a certain summer where I was like, I know this is going to be my last summer. Like, it wasn't like a certain, like, thing, but I just knew, like, okay, it's going to be time for me to move forward. After that summer, I started putting in applications, and then I got a position with pre-health and loved that job. That was the job in which my boss had actually told me that basically this is as much as he can give me, and this is the highest position that I will be able to get there. I actually didn't start looking for jobs because I was comfortable, but he had actually told me that I know you can do much more than you're doing here, and I know you're going to be taken from us. And eventually that's what happened. I didn't actually apply for the job, but I was recruited to where I am now. But sometimes it's when you get to a point in a position where you're doing the same things over and over again, where you kind of perfected what you can give to the department, and you're kind of ready to grow more, then you know that it's time to leave. That's one indicator. So there's a lot of different indicators that there may be, but you may experience just kind of getting too big for your office. So that can be one indicator, one of many. If that makes sense, hopefully.
It does, because it makes me think of how, for me, like in my own work experience, a lot of my time since undergrad, I did 2 years of AmeriCorps, and those are like separate service terms, and then coming into PASA, doing a graduate assistantship at the Career Center and doing a graduate assistantship here over at Northside Advising is very short term. And for me, like, I haven't had that experience of being in a position long enough to actually be in that point where it's like, oh yeah, you're getting a little bit big over here. Like, you perfect a lot of those things. Maybe it's time for you to like move on up. And I think that'll be, for me at least, it'll be interesting when that happens, because I know I constantly wonder for myself, like, okay, I haven't hit the wall yet of like all the amazing things I can do. Like, I know I can do a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like I haven't experienced that yet, and knowing that, like, okay, this is as far as I can go over here. So I think it'll be interesting, at least for me, like when that happens, be like, oh, so this is what it feels like.
Yeah, definitely. And you definitely want to put yourself in a position in your job. Relationships are everything. So you want to make sure that the work that you do, they see that you have pride in what you do. Like, this is your passion. Like, this is you put everything into your job. And you know that your bosses are supposed to know that this isn't just a job for you, but this is a passion. This is your career, and this is what you really want to do. And I think that's what my boss had told me. Like, he sees that passion, and it's important that you even if you know that, even if you may be in a position that you don't necessarily want to be in, like that previous job with Upward Bound, I still worked my hardest there, because I know that this job and the people that I'm working with here are going to vouch for me to get to the next position. So that's really important, just to maintain those relationships and for them to see that passion in you.
I can say again that I agree with what you say, but to just really trust yourself, I think you know personally when you're just saying something out of frustration, like I'm so tired of my job, or when it really is, I'm pretty good at my job, what more can I do here? Okay, I'm not able to move what I'm doing to greater lengths here, so where am I looking to move next? Am I going to go back to school? Do I want to move out of the state? Do I want to try working internationally? You know, all these things come up. The more that I've been in higher education, the longer, the more I found out different opportunities. I didn't realize that there's an opportunity for me to work in student affairs in London or to do semester at sea. Those were things that you did when you studied abroad in undergrad, or you did that as an undergrad thing, but there are student affairs professionals everywhere. Again, this goes with my background of I fell into student affairs like I think a lot of people do, so really falling into your next position is something that I expect to do as well. So this may also be scary for those of you who are job hunting, but I am constantly looking, and it's not constantly looking for a job, it's constantly looking at what other people are doing and what skills I need to develop in myself in order to get that future job. I do research different higher ed job websites or different professionals that I admire, or I want to become this position in the future, and kind of seeing how this individual got to that role, so then I can keep an eye out and I know what skills I need to develop. So maybe that's another way to refresh what you're currently doing in your role when you start to feel that angst of leaving to do something else. Just really thinking about that internally and personally, and really seeing where you want to move, I think is very important. So I don't think it's a bad job or bad idea to job search, but it's more like job description search of, ooh, that's a skill that that person has and is in that role. Oh, I didn't know that you could do that position. How do I get there? And then always working the hardest you can in your current position, because I have now transitioned into a role where I didn't have a transition piece with the person. So I had to try to figure out what was that person doing towards the end of her time here, and I could see that the work that was put in was very important, and it allowed me to then scoop it right in, take and learn from her leaving without ever meeting her, and then moving forward and putting my own stamp on it, and then where I want to bring this organization and my position moving forward. So again, with the feeling, I really trust my feeling, because it has given me the opportunity to be where I am here. It hasn't always been pretty. It hasn't been a straight line. I moved. I didn't stay in a job for 1 year and then 2 years and then 2 years. I was in a role for 8 months because out of state, I moved for a role because I thought it was the one. I went for the big name. I got there and my heart wasn't into it. So I honestly believe in it's very personal, and you need to put yourself out there. There's no right way to do this job search. There's no right path to get to your end career goal. You'll see in your development and meeting people and networking that people got to their role in the most unexpected ways, and you'll get to your place too. Just, it takes time, and don't get frustrated. Just do the best that you can. I think it's do the best until you know better, and then do better. That's kind of how I feel. I'm still doing that process.
Definitely. Just to piggyback off Daphney a little bit, she mentioned, I think this is so true, like it's not a ladder that you climb, it's a jungle gym sometimes. You're going back and forth, and you're not always, trying to move to the next one up, but if you're trying, for me, I was trying to get to a certain demographic, so that didn't always lend itself to getting the next position higher. Sometimes my position was a lateral move, but it was moving forward for me because I was getting closer to the student population I wanted to work with. So some people, they may be going straight up to, dean or whatever they want to be. But for me, I really did do a jungle gym type movements. for while I was in my last position in pre-health, I loved the fact that I was in the now in the higher ed side. But again, I shared with you guys, I love the underrepresented population. So what I would do is I would volunteer with the First Generation Mentor Program here at the Career Center. And every year I have a mentee. You know, although I had my job, I found ways outside of my job to make sure that I was still kind of, you know, working with students that were underrepresented and the ones that were close to my heart. And that actually, in doing that volunteer opportunity, that's actually how I got to this position now, because I sat on a panel with one of the assistant directors here, and she knew that that was my passion, and I talked to her about it, and I unknowingly, like, basically she called me and said, hey, there's a new department starting here at USC, and I think you would be really good to apply for the position. And that's because I kind of went above and beyond my job description and did something that I had an interest in. So that's something that, you know, hopefully someone can take away, that if you are in a position that you love, but you know there's a certain population, in a way that you can work with student groups on campus, or help those, you know, or volunteer. And if you're interested in international students, but you're working in, you know, judicial affairs, you know, do they have an American culture class? Do they have something that you can work with that student population that you eventually want to get to? And then that's how you network, and people see you, and people see that you step outside your comfort zone and go beyond just your job description to help students. So that's something that I definitely want PASA alum to know, that you should definitely do if you do have that option on your campuses once you get that job, once you get that first job.
Great. So we're gonna switch up gears and move on to the next next question. But a lot of great conversations so far. So how do you have this job transition conversation with your supervisor? Like, I can only imagine how awkward it might be.
I hope that you have a good rapport with your supervisor, that you are able to have discussions about this. Sometimes even in your job interviews, they'll ask you, what is your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan? So it's like, I want to develop myself here, and I want to move on to ultimately be, I don't know, the dean of students, and that's not really the path that this position knows, and so they understand that. I think honesty from the beginning, they ask you these questions, and hopefully they remember that you said, I want to go to a PhD program, EDD program, whatnot. So I think that's always in the back of their minds, what you really want to do. But I do understand having not the best rapport with supervisors, and I can say that it is a scary thing, and that's where the importance of mentors come in, student affairs mentors, to help you navigate the process. It is a small field, but having people really encourage you and help you develop what you want to be, and maybe give you advice on how to have a conversation with your supervisor, or maybe there's other people that you can talk to regarding it. That's the way that I've been able to do it. And I've also been honest with my supervisors. Again, I believe that's very important, whether or not you have the best rapport. But let them know, you know, this is how I am feeling in my current position. Are there ways that I can help the organization move forward? If not, then getting a feeler and letting them know, okay, well, I'm looking for these opportunities. If we're able to do it here, great. If it's time to move on, that's also a conversation to have.
Definitely agree. I think just to piggyback off Daphney again, it's all about communication, and it's all about from the get-go, letting your, if you have a special interest, you know, letting your boss know about that. I think for me, my boss always knew that kind of what my particular interest is, and she saw that. So it's all about communication. It's all about communication, and if you have a great relationship with your boss, then that should definitely be easy. If you don't, and I know that's not always the reality, I think just kind of when you do have those one-on-ones, just kind of just talking about future in 5-10 years, this is where I would like to be type things. Then I think it won't be as much of a surprise if you say, I have this opportunity or this interview.
Great. And I just realized, as both of you were sharing, that the next question are pretty much similar. Because the next one was, if you're relying on people at your current office to be your letter of rec, how do you navigate that conversation? So similar to the previous one. So we'll just skip on ahead to go on to the next question. So if your job hunt is not fruitful and you decide to stay at your current position, how do you navigate or how do you negotiate a pay raise? If possible.
Depending on what type of institution that you're at and what department you're at, that may or may not be a reality. Some departments just have caps, and you're just at the top. For my last position, I actually did negotiate a pay raise and going from a level 1 to a level 2, but you have to be doing the work of the level that you want to move to. You can't say, oh, if I get a raise, then I'll do this. No, it's like you have to prove that you're already doing the work, that basically you need to be compensated for what you're already doing, if the department even has the ability to do so. So that was a lot of work, and it took a very long time because HR is a very slow process. But that conversation started. I was at that position for 4 years, and about year number 2, I was looking at various my peers around campus and kind of what they were doing as the same level as I was versus what I was doing, and I started building my case for moving to an advisor 2 and looking at the advisor 2 descriptions and what those requirements were. And they make you do, it's not easy, they make you do the work to if your office even has the ability to do so, you have to do the work to say, I'm not doing the job of what I'm getting paid for, what my title is. I'm doing the job of this particular title, and I think I deserve X, Y, and Z. And some bosses will say, well, this is as far as you can go. So if you want to, get higher, you have to go somewhere else. And then unfortunately, some of my peers, they have been promised raises and been promised position changes, but it's never happened. So you do have to also understand that sometimes it's beyond your boss's control, what they can do. Public versus private institutions are very different. So really, hopefully your supervisor is honest with you enough to really explain the ins and outs of that particular department, and whether this is even a battle you can fight. And if it is, just be prepared to kind of come with everything, unless your boss is just like, oh, let's just go ahead and bump you up because we like you, but you're probably going to have to build your case. So that was my particular experience. And unfortunately, as soon as HR actually went through everything, I got another job. So, yeah.
What a luxury it would be if we were similar to the corporate world of, that sounds like a good idea to give you a raise, but I completely agree. I'm at a state institution, one that is part of a chain of 23 total. So my job has to match what someone doing a similar role is doing on 22 other campuses. I'm in an auxiliary, which is a dotted line rapport nonprofit corporation that assists in supporting student needs for the CSU campus. So that also is different, where the auxiliaries are there to support the institution. So if the state side's not getting a raise, then the auxiliaries are not getting a raise, and we try to match what they're doing. So there are a lot of components to what it means to ask for a raise, and what I can tell you is your job description will be your best friend, because it helps you with your evaluations. I think if you're doing the job, as Lena alluded to, if you're doing the job, then you get a 3 on a 1 to 5 scale. So when are you then getting those 4s and 5s? I'm using this assessment tool for some of you, reverting back to some of the things I've learned. But when you're getting 4s and 5s, that means you are going above and beyond. And then that line in your job descriptions that says other tasks as assigned, what does that really mean? And for you to then take hold and responsibility of keeping track of all those other tasks, because when you're ready to fight for that new role, and for those of you who are in positions that you're trying to gain the same funding for your organization, whether it's programming, whether it's staffing, if it's in a grant, trying to re-up your program and writing more grants, you're always fighting. Why do we need the money? What is the impact we're having on students? So do that for yourself. Why do you need the money, and what is your impact on students, student life, the mission of your organization? That's all really important for you to keep track of, so then you can go in there and say, here's where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, this is the impact I want to make. Is this something that I'm able to do to help grow this organization, or am I just here to sustain what we're already doing? And then it goes back to the honest, difficult conversations. You could tell by how uncomfortable we were talking about the relationship with your supervisors, because I'm not there yet. I can have that conversation with my students, but it's more difficult for me to have it with my supervisor. He's a great person, but when I'm there, I'll probably have to navigate through that again. So you have to have the communication, you have to be willing to fight for it and mention it, and then you have to always be prepared for what the outcome is when you go in asking for changes to be made.
So we'll transition into our last question that was submitted. So what are other challenges that individuals may encounter with this form of job hunting? If there are any other challenges.
For me, I was fortunate, unfortunate to job search last year, and it really was in total about a 7-month process from when I decided, started looking, my recommendations in order, started applying and hearing back. HR is a long process, depending on what, if it's a small HR or if it's bigger. I'm using the example of stateside. For me, I jumped into this level of day-plus interviews this year that was really unique. Flying in somewhere, having to go to dinner that night, 8:30 in the morning until 5, meeting with students, staff, potential campus partners, AVPs. It was interesting for me. So I actually kept kind of a journal for me of questions that I wanted to ask, and then I saw my process as I was thankful and lucky enough to get 4 on-campus interviews last year, but I saw where my progress went and the questions I started to ask. For me, in programming and working in student government, the scariest piece of it was actually the students, because they were taking ownership. This was their program. You're stepping into our institution. This is not yours. This is ours. How are you going to come in and change everything? And so that was one that I wasn't as used to. I was used to working with students in a supervisory role, but when they said, tell me why we should pick you, that was a different conversation to have versus something with the AVPs and directors, executive directors that wanted to know that you were here for the mission, you were here to save money, you were here to grow the organization and student development and all of these big picture things that they wanted. The students said, what are you going to do in the next years, and how are you going to allow us to do it the way we've been doing it, but put your flair into it. So be prepared to reach out to different audiences with the presentations that you may have to make. I had to do a writing sample one time, answer questions. So PASA really does prepare you for the presentations, how to engage an audience. I can see, because I've also sat on the other side where I've been on panels to see an interview a potential candidate, and PASA does a good job with having you do these presentations, for writing a lot, for networking. It's really a great thing. It's just a very interesting experience to be on campus, because each institution will do it differently. You may be in there for 4 hours, you may be in there for technically 12 hours. Just remember to be kind to people, because the people who you meet may have the opportunity to fill out a piece of paper on you.
Definitely agree. I think that just being flexible and being open and being in touch with the reality that it may not always be a ladder. So as far as this kind of, this type of movement within a job, or, moving to your next job, it's not always going to be a ladder, especially if if there's a very specific population you want to work with, or a specific institution you want to be at. The opportunities might not be exactly where you want it to be at that point, but that next move might give you leverage for your next move. So you kind of have to think a few moves ahead of time, and I think that works out, because it does put you in a position where you get a little bit closer to where you ultimately would like to be. For me, I thought that in order to work with the population that I wanted to work with, my undergrad was done at Cal Poly Pomona, so I thought that I would have to go back to a Cal State to really make an impact on a certain population of students, and I guess I'm meant to stay here longer, because I'm here. And I found that there are those same population of students that need that same help right here at this private institution, USC, that I love so much. So I just be open. I think you just need to be open, and just keep moving towards those opportunities by networking, by continuing to talk to people, by keeping in contact with your peers that are going to different institutions, because all of those things are what will give you opportunities in the future, or you may be able to give someone else an opportunity. So networking is just, it's the key.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both for all your wonderful responses to these questions. So as it turns out, we don't have any live viewers, so we don't have any live questions, but it's okay. So we'll transition into our closing. So any final thoughts or pieces of advice that you'd like to offer?
Your first job will not be your last, so don't stress out. You probably will have many jobs, many jobs. I'm on my 4th job since undergrad, and I worked full time through PASA.
So good. I'm on my 5th in about 6 years, so that shows you the progress. And I was at one of those jobs for 4 years, so that shows you even more about me. We can talk offline. You can talk offline if you have any questions about that. But for me, as another grad student that I was employing at the time was giving her remarks as she was leaving, and she told our students to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that really resonated with me. So that was something I learned from a student. And then the last thing is that when you're going for these job interviews, remember that you're interviewing them as well to see if it's a good fit for you. So you may be very anxious and really want to impress someone, but you have to make sure that it's on your heart and that you're passionate and you can see yourself there. Make sure that they're impressing you as well, and that these are the colleagues and the students you want to work with and for, and then an institution that you can really see what you value and that you can bring something to them. So lots of things. And again, network. I am very proud to be part of PASA and them allowing us to have this platform to speak with you all. And I think we're a really good group of sending out different jobs. So reach out to your other PASAs. They may know someone else. And I think it's just awesome. And again, I'm super proud to be part of this and thankful.
Definitely. Ditto. Ditto.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to thank Daphney and Lena for joining us on this Google Hangout. So quick plugs for upcoming events. So later this month, we are doing an assessment workshop. So PASA students, and if there are any EC students that happen to be watching this video, look out for the Facebook event for later on this month. Also, we're making a plug for our NASFA social at National. Can't remember the exact details, but PASA alumni, check out the Facebook group and the LinkedIn group at some point within this week, as well as your emails for more information about that. With that being said, so next month's topic is actually who's not at the table, invisible student populations. And then after that, we have one more. So it's 2 more Google Hangouts for the rest of the semester. So with that, have a wonderful Wednesday, everyone. Bye.
All right, fight on.
Fight on.
Fight on.